All right, so welcome everybody to today's Adaptive Leaders Retreat. Um, we're gonna today's session is really a continuation of a conversation that started a few weeks back at Thayer Academy out in Boston through the Oasis Network, where we were meeting with some leaders and educators from across a spectrum of you know small, medium, large size private independent schools. And what we were talking about in the age of AI was, the role that purpose is playing in education. And, for those of us who don't, come from an education background, I spent most of my years, working in professional organizations, mostly with IT teams early on, helping them learn more adaptive software development practices, helping them introduce things like, DevSecOps, those whole pipelines to go from continuous ideation to continuous deployment, going from situations where you might have a monthly or quarterly release of your software, that you might see in many institutions, to where you get to like the Amazons, where you may have a couple of hundred to a couple of thousand releases a day. Right. And it's, the shift in the mindset that was, started back 20 some odd years ago with the, Agile Manifesto for software delivery. Um, and there's an interesting parallel, and we're going to talk about it a little bit today. So I'm just going to kind of jump into the deck to set the context for the conversation, and we will just start. So, there's something that is very common if you look at, if you look at biological systems, right? They evolve based upon their context, right? And even economic systems and manufacturing systems, they all based upon the context in which they're operating on, the conditions, whether it's market drivers, whether it's knowledge, whether it's, the existence of automation, how power is generated. They evolve over time to kind of meet the environment that they're working in. And it's those similar adaptive practices that education really does find itself right now on the, looking over and going, okay, well, what are we going to do? Right? We started with this modality of education where it's, preparing people to enter the workforce back in Prussia in the 1800s, and then now it's, all through the 1900s. You had the introduction of the four primary, education models that resulted in all these different things that, people have been trying. But what's happened is the context, the environment, the world continues to change. And, what we look for and turn to education systems to, help with, we're finding ourselves, kind of questioning, okay, so what is next? Which really brought us to this conversation that was really going on during the entire, weekend at the Hare Academy, which was, the role of purpose and, the role that it plays when you're thinking about, education and as it operates in, these high-tech environments, especially given, AI and its role today. And so we thought that we would bring in from the L-EAF framework this idea of a purpose manager, and how it is this idea of purpose, this set of responsibilities. Maybe it should really be purpose management and not purpose manager, because it's more about identifying these new sets of responsibilities that someone is going to need to be responsible for. It may be a group of people, it may be shared responsibilities, but there is this new set of responsibilities, and thinking differently about education that it would help us to start thinking about. So we had talked about one thing that all of these companies have in common, regardless of how old they are, right, or how new they are. right? What they all have is they are all shifting to a new mindset around how work is done. Now, their work itself doesn't change, just how they think about their work has fundamentally shifted over the years. I was involved in a early transformation over at TIA CREF where we introduced to one of their programs, it was their life insurance program. We introduced across 200 plus people a 16-fold increase in productivity. And the way we did it was by reducing the amount of hours they work and stopping all the things that they were doing that actually didn't deliver one bit of customer value. And we introduced some automation, which made their lives easier, right? And so it wasn't about working harder. It wasn't about that. It was about, shifting the mindset. Where are we going to focus one of our most precious, you know, uh, things that we can use to deliver value, which is, human capacity. And so this all began, and we talked about this, and we'll go through this quickly, right? It really, in software development, it began back in 2001, right? A group of software developers were like, look, there's got to be a better way to do this than spending all these time writing these documents that no one wants to read on how the software needs to work, right? And so they said, look, we're not saying there's no value in things like processes and tools or documentation or, contracts or having a plan. It's just we're going to value these things way more, you know? And, it has over the last 23, 24 years, it has turned into a multi-billion-dollar industry. And not just in software development, it has gone way beyond software development. I've done transformations for government industries, government sectors. I have friends who've worked in national labs, with research scientists learning more adaptive ways to work. So, what we talked about at Thayer Academy was really the idea of purpose and how this purpose management shows up to support teachers in the classroom. Today we're not going to do that. Today we're going to talk about it looking at it in the other direction. Because the purpose management set of responsibilities, right? They are just as important to help ensure that there's purpose in the classroom for the students as it is to ensure that there's purpose between the board and the head, between leaders and staff, to ensure that everybody is working toward shared and common goals, the things that we all say are important, why and who we're doing it for. So one of the distinctions that, was very well made was this idea of a knowledge worker. And there's been a lot of research at this through a lot of different lenses, sociology, psychology, economics, motivation. I mean, it's for years it's been researched, and they've identified two different types of workers. There's the rote worker who shows up every day, does the same thing, right? They don't, ever face a challenge. It's just if I work faster, I'll do more. If I work slower, I'll do less. They're motivated by the carrot and the stick versus the knowledge worker who is solving complex or chaotic problems. These are things that maybe no one's done before here or no one's ever done before, or they're unique to a specific context, right? So there's no best practice, there's no solution that needs to be implemented. Rather, there are things that need to be explored, systems that need to be understood, knowledge that needs to be obtained. That is a knowledge worker, and you cannot motivate them with carrot stick. Rather, you have to motivate them by first giving them purpose. Why is this so important? Who are we doing this for, and what problems are we solving? Then you have to give them the access to the tools and knowledge and give them an opportunity to gain whatever mastery they need over that, right? And then as leaders, we need to learn how to get out of the way and let them solve the problem. So we need to give them autonomy over the solution, right? Which isn't going to come with mounds and mounds of documentation, right? So if that's what knowledge work is, it's any work that has these conditions to it. There's a degree of complexity of unknown or chaos, the unknowable, right? You're operating in changing conditions. It's going to involve a level of critical thinking, not just blind rote muscle memory, right? That is knowledge work in a nutshell. And when you think about, we talked about this, how you motivate knowledge workers, it really is these three dimensions, right? And for software developers, look no further than the world of open source software, where you have a bunch of people who get paid Monday through Friday to develop complex systems, and then on nights and weekends they donate their time to develop complex systems for free. Nah, and it's because there they get all this, but they're miserable at their 9 to 5, where they're doing the exact same work, but all they're getting is carrot and stick, right? And so this has really resulted in this concept of a product manager, right? Someone whose responsibility is to ensure that there is a customer centricity on the solutions that are being, developed by the teams, that, they are focused on delivering value and not wasting time on things that aren't delivering value, and that it's aligned with the mission, the values of the organization, right? So they help to connect vision to action, or as we like to call it, strategy to tactics, right? And that's what we basically explain that a product managers are able to do. They help align the vision of the organization that leadership has with the needs of the customers, and they really do it for the benefit of the teams who have to solve the problem. And that's, again, the work itself doesn't change. We're still writing software. We're still testing. We're still, right? We still have the deployment schedules. We're still making budgets. We're still doing marketing campaigns. We're still hiring people. We're still having enrollment, right? We're just thinking about the way we do our work differently. So at L-EAF, right, which is it is essentially an adaptive agile framework that was born out of the beginning of the pandemic when, we went into lockdown. We started looking at, okay, so what are all the skills, practices, the capabilities that people are using in industry to deal with these situations, and we came up with a framework along with several different methodologies and practices and whatnot that were designed to address this specifically in education. And one of these is this idea of a purpose manager. How to identify and manage these sets of responsibilities and what they actually look like within the context of education. Now, this slide, again, the slides that we're going to talk about next for the next couple of minutes are going to be geared towards bringing it into the classroom, but I'm going to speak about it looking in the other direction, right? So there is always going to be a degree of student centricity, and the purpose manager always needs to be keeping the student in mind, even when they're working with, with leaders, they're supporting administrative staff. They might be working with boards and supporting, board teams who are working on strategic initiatives, right? They are the ones who are there to ask the question, yes, but the students. They are focused on identifying the purpose, which really is, it's a 3-point question: who, what, and why. Who are we doing this for? What is it, what are we solving for them? And why is it so critical that we're doing that? And then they're there to ensure that the work itself is aligned with the school's missions and values, right? So that the staff, the board, the leaders, as well as the students and faculty can see themselves as the strategic initiatives are turning into strategy, short-term strategy, and then ultimately being executed on tactically. And what we're talking about is really pushing systems that go from push to pull. Right? It's no longer, hey, I need you to do this by next week, but rather, hey, I think I can get this to you in a week and a half, or whatever might be so. Because there's value in having some sort of realistic expectation rather than setting expectations for other people. And through this, as we are looking for better ways to ensure that students are having these meaningful educational journeys, we too have found that there are things that, while they bring value, we're gonna prefer things on the left side, right? And so we too prefer individuals and interactions over processes and tools. We prefer meaningful lessons, or in this case, it would be meaningful strategy or aligned strategy over, some sort of checking a box, right? Collaboration over individual competitions and responding to change rather than just keeping a strategy alive for 3 to 5 years because we came up with it, 2 to 4 years ago. And in this case, the purpose manager serves a lot of the same capabilities and serves a lot of the same responsibilities that a product manager does for teams, right? They're there to ensure that the the strategic work that's flowing to the teams to execute on tactically, it is rich with purpose that is aligned with the values and missions of the school, right? That it is clearly articulated, the purpose in it, and that it is taking into account all those who are going to be impacted, whether they are the students or the teachers or the community or whoever those stakeholders are. Again, as you think about what they're doing for the teams, it's really not going to be much different from what we see them providing. Is their goal is to make sure that the teams have purpose, right? That the leadership teams, the administration and staff are clearly aligned on, oh yeah, this is why it's so important that we figure this out. We're not going to go into the next things. These are actually purpose statements that are used by teachers to introduce purpose into their classroom. Not real relevant to this conversation. I won't ask, Todd to share his board that he uses with his, as a head of school that he uses with his board of directors to go ahead and manage their strategy to tactics. But you know, on it you will find, a lot of the same things where you'll find the reason that we're taking on this work is because of this. We've got something that's really important for the students, right? Or that's really important for, some other set of stakeholders, and why we're focused on it and the reason that we're doing it and what we're trying to solve for is clearly articulated so that, as that work flows down, as that knowledge and information flows down to the teams where ultimately staff and faculty will execute and deliver on the strategy, that they are able to see themselves, right, in the work that's being done, and they're pulling because of that meaning that's in there, and their motivation is already tapped. So, at this point, I would like to open it up to questions, comments. I know Simon, Todd, y'all use this, you help other schools to adopt, you know, this mindset. Is there anything that you would like to share?
Yeah, I guess I would say a couple of things. Um, I think one of the things that, as someone who's been in education since the mid 90s, would say it's really fashionable in schools to equate sort of busyness, urgency, and rushing around with merit. And as someone who is now shares responsibility for uh, delivering the function of a board of directors to a local independent school, slowing down is often guilt producing and feels difficult. But when we have to solve problems together, it's the slowing down together to then start moving again together after that slowing down and sort of retrospection that just brings my personal blood pressure down. and hopefully that, is felt by other people in the team, because it then makes it easier to have those repurposing questions, um, to get to those, awkward points of, what does need to change if we want to get somewhere better. It just makes those things much easier. I do have some other stuff I could say, Jeff, about sort of practical application for school administrators, um, sort of around two different use cases, depending upon the funding mechanism, public institutions or private institutions, because they look quite different in those two different contexts, because the underlying revenue models are different.
If you want, Todd, if you had something to say, Mary, if you had any questions, it's really, this is an open conversation, and so, it's really up to the group what we talk about this.
I mean, I like the idea of the purpose manager in some respects, giving a little more from a practical aspect and giving it more focus in. I think we like in a small school setting, we all try to do that, but it's not explicit. So this makes it a little more intentional.
Yeah, it's clear when you see this set of responsibilities and you understand it's like, oh, who's going to make sure that when everybody's just not feeling it, that we are once again connected to the why we all said it was so important.
Yeah, it's almost like that filter, it's like a purpose filter.
Hmm.
Right. It creates alignment like a base pair or an iron filing. That alignment is, it's a literal thing that has also metaphorical instances as well.
And I would say working with students, they're really hungry to see purpose in what they're doing in their coursework as opposed to, oh, just memorize from this textbook and take a multiple choice exam. They want to see how what they're learning connects to what they're going to do in their work. Mm-hmm. And connects to other people too. It's interesting, even though we have such a shift online, I see that students really are hungry to connect to each other, and holding like a Zoom session makes a huge difference for them versus doing the asynchronous type of class, because they do see purpose in building their professional network and getting to know the other people in the class. I use a lot of agile methodologies in my coursework. So students do code reviews, they do retrospectives, they do stand-up meetings. Cool. And we do that through Zoom if it's an online class.
Sure.
And seeing how that connects to what they're going to be doing in the workforce gives them that sense of purpose in the classroom. It makes a huge, huge difference in how they engage, and the success rate too. I mean, the retention is a lot higher if you have those types of techniques. Of course, that takes time and planning and a very thoughtful approach to pull those ideas together and embed it into the course versus just buying software from Cengage and assigning it.
Right.
And I think,
so one of the things that L-EAF did is we actually developed a pedagogy for teachers who are interested in saying, okay, I wouldn't mind bringing in some, adaptive, agile ways of working into my classroom, but what I don't have is time to learn a new thing. Right? Mm-hmm. I don't have time to convert all my things, and it, a lot of what you're saying is true in the lab, which we set up for students to come in and get, real world experience working on real world problems, but they do them in agile teams. They learn the L-EAF methodologies for both, teaming and working in a net, in a program type environment where you have multiple teams working on a bigger product, to deliver it. And they real quickly adapt to the way of working, and when they're able to go, oh my god, these are the tools that they use in industry, yeah, we use professional tools. We don't teach them the tools. We don't focus on training them the methodologies. We just get them together in teams and show them, here, this is how you now work. And they go, okay. And they just start working that way, right? And it's like zero effort as it is to, let's say, doing that work with teams that have been coding together for 10, 20 years. And they're like, no, 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 you have to do it this way. I'm like, okay, well, I guess we're done. Yeah, so I mean, there are a lot of things that for educators like yourself who are looking for things, looking for, you know, for approaches, there are things out there that we would be happy to, introduce you to, show you. The students in the lab actually built a GTP for teachers who want to use the pedagogy and need to convert all their lesson plans. It converts them all for them.
Oh, wow.
And
That
so,
makes a
Yeah.
huge
And they're
difference.
now using this and saving themselves anywhere between 5 to 10 hours a week on lesson planning.
and so what it does is it then populates a backlog with learning cards to go across the workflow board, similar to a Kanban card flow.
I could, if you have a minute, we can show you the last student demo that came out of the lab where
Oh, yes. Let's take a
really-
look at it.
they essentially went ahead and were like, okay, well, if this is, hold on, let's go back to,
Oh, and it would be worthwhile to see how it ties out to the board, just so that Mary can see kind of the full stack of the cards that got the students to that conversation with the
sure, and
stakeholders.
it's in there. They take it all the way to the board. I mean, they
Oh,
don't spend a lot of time on the board, but
no, that's fine. That's fine. I just want to make sure that there's visibility to how that value is being created.
yeah. When did we do that call? Now,
Last night.
was that last night? No, that was 2 nights ago.
No, it was Thursday night.
No.
We meet with Shannon on Thursday. Today's Friday.
Yeah, but that's not when we recorded the AI thing. That's when we met with.
Sorry.
That's
Oh, I have no idea.
I'm clear. Hold on. Oh, let me go here. Here we go. I'm not even in the right thing. Okay. I thought it would have been like Monday night. Hold on. Let's see.
Jeff, would you mind starting the recording when I demo what I'm going to say about implementation of this in the private and public context and how they're different, and some guidance about how to get started?
I don't know when you're planning on doing that, but the recording's going right now.
Oh, it's already gone. Okay.
Never stopped it. What I'm having trouble doing is finding that video.
Mary, would you please remind me of what your role is at the college there? You said you're in IT, but
Yes.
that could be a range of
Oh,
things.
I'm an information technology instructor, and
Mhm.
I'm the lead instructor for software development.
Okay.
And it looks like we're going to be developing a new Google certificate program, so I may be the lead
Sweet.
or program coordinator for that as well. That's
Hey.
still in the works. It's not an official thing yet, but
Okay. Very cool.
and so Google has several certificates they offer, like AI, cybersecurity, project management. And
Yeah.
so we're looking at adding those, and they would be like a standalone certificate where somebody from industry can come, or someone that already has a college degree, and then they can upskill in that area. So maybe someone has a marketing degree and they want to get a digital marketing certificate to go with that degree. That would be one of the possibilities that we might offer. So
Cool. How large is your department?
we have 6 full-time instructors and about 30 part-time instructors that teach 1 or 2 classes a term. They're IT professionals that work full-time. And we have over 200 students.
Wow.
So I think we're the largest department at Minneapolis College. And actually, I say 200, that's FTE, full-time equivalent. We probably have more like 400 students because a lot of our students are part-time. But the way the Minnesota state system counts it is 2 part-time students equal 1 FTE.
Right.
So
Got it. Okay. Interesting. And have you found that it seems like demand for the department is sort of strong, and you feel like, yeah, this is not going to go away anytime soon because the things that these people are learning here are going to be relevant and worth paying for long into the future?
we definitely have growth. We're actually trying to hire for another faculty member right now because we're down a member for network administration.
Mm-hmm.
And we may add another hire line for computer science because we don't currently have a computer science AS degree that's transferable.
Hmm.
That's another thing we're looking at expanding because a lot of students come in, they'd like to do a 2-year degree, but then they'd like to go on and complete a 4-year degree at the University of Minnesota.
Sure.
And right now we just have applied degrees
Mm-hmm.
that prepare students to go directly to the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that they couldn't transfer, but if we have a degree that's set up specifically to meet all the requirements of the university, that
Mm-hmm.
makes it easier for them.
Yeah. Do you think it's something like digital leadership? You got to go, Todd.
I got to jump off for another meeting.
Okay. Good to see you. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks. Nice meeting you, Mary.
Nice to meet you.
See you, Jeff.
See ya. I found the video finally. I am sorry about that. Oh my. That was terrible. Let me share my screen again. And whenever you want to start, by all means.
Yeah, I can share my
Of
screen
course, I
here.
brought up the audio. But hold on. At least I found it. So hold on. Let's get rid of that and MP4.
And so, Mary, how much of your total instruction is?
And then whenever you want to start, by all means.
Yeah, I can share my screen here. Hi, can you guys see that?
I can see
Yep.
your Zoom screen to launch. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right, so this is the most up-to-date version of our L-EAF assistant. Mainly the new addition is that it connects to the Kanban zone, integrates with all of that now. I'm just gonna clear the cards in here before I start. So yeah, there's no cards on our board right now. Let me refresh the page. So I'll just do a quick example of how it's working and all the features. So let's say we want to do math, 4th grade, and types of triangles, and angles, and measuring angles. So you could create a lesson plan with a unit plan and learning objectives. This part usually takes about 10 seconds for it to load. You can see it has
Wow.
the interact, like learning activities, facilitating questions, all of that stuff. The new part is you can generate cards for lesson plans. And this will take just a moment. And you can see it shows the cards on the page, and it has, each card has a title, the description, so that has like learning purpose, wide open question, milestones, and that kind of stuff. And it also estimates dates, so this would be like a week in the future, about 2 weeks in the future, going forward like that. And there's also the option to edit any of this. So let's say we don't like triangle classification, we want to rename it like learning about triangles or something. And if we wanted to change the date, can just click on this button over here and change it to the 19th. And then we want to upload it to Compound Zone. There's this button at the bottom. And this I had autofilled to the API keyboard ID and the lane ID for the test integration board. But the way it works now is if you want to test it out on a different board, you can just like copy other board ID and lane ID. And then you hit upload to Compound Zone. And if you want to open the link to the board, it works here. And we can see all of our cards in here with the information in them. So yeah, that's basically the demo. Do you guys have any?
And so this is the board that it actually populates on, which is a learning flow board, right? So from here, it can start getting refined with students, and they can start pulling from that different cards that they want to go ahead and build out, that they pull through their own learning flow, which is basically a modified Kanban with a couple of simple practices added on to help the students go, okay, first we have to plan our work. So we're going to focus on this during this little working cycle, a week or 2 weeks, and we're going to add some details. Then we'll work on it. Then we'll verify it. Then we're done. So,
That's really neat.
yeah. So, you know, the idea of, these sets of responsibilities kind of now showing up as schools are starting to adapt to this new mindset, where we think there's value in kind of looking at it through the lens that, has been looked at, when it comes to product development, right? So we've kind of garnered together similar sets of responsibilities and said, hey, find people who are being responsible for that, or make sure that someone is being responsible for that, because it doesn't care for itself. And that's the general idea.
So on the back end, it uses just an AI GPT to generate the data to fill in the lesson plan.
Yeah, they connected it to a chat, OpenAI. They also created a small language model, which included the pedagogy.
Oh, cool.
So that, if a teacher actually is like, hey, I don't know how to introduce planning to my class. It's like, here, do these things. Here's a sample agenda. You might try, this. It's like, oh, I don't know how to explain to my students what they should do during refinement. Here's a cheat sheet for them, right? They need to be doing these kinds of things, right? And it can do it at different language, for different age students and all this. It's actually, I mean, if you want to, they built a version inside of OpenAI, and you don't actually need an account for it, but I'll give you the link to it. You're welcome to.
Oh, that would be great. I would love to share this with my colleagues. I think a lot of folks don't move in this direction because they don't see how to get the materials,
Right.
Yeah, well, that's why it got built. We kept explaining to the students that teachers are like, they don't know what to do first. And it's like, why do they have to do anything? Why don't we just give them a tool and it'll do it for them? And we're like, okay, sure.
Because we can purchase, when you buy a textbook or order a textbook, you get all these tools from the publisher
Right.
for your class. And a lot of folks really rely on that because we're prepping like 5 to 7 classes a semester.
That's a shit ton of classes.
Yeah, and I teach 5 or 7 different classes. So it's everyone is a different advanced software development class.
Yeah.
Like I'll have full stack .NET, C#, Java, a web development class with JavaScript and React. And so I think that instructors really struggle to put all the materials together. Like just that.
Right. So we're trying to make that easier for people.
Yeah. We're going to give you one more link because you might have some students in some of your classes who might be the kind of students who would be like, you know what? I would not mind 2 to 5 hours a week over the course of, we offer different length programs where I can actually go earn my own professional certification. I can actually go ahead and build up my portfolio of things that I've worked on that show up in the real world. We back everything up on, Web 3.0 compliant portable certificate, thing. It's all the latest future tech. But we have a new thing that we just opened up that's going to be working on a lot of educational products and things like that. But you're welcome to share. We're always
Oh,
looking for really good candidates. We have some students who've been in the lab for a couple of years now, but we ask for 3 months, 2 to 5 hours a week. And we promise that every student will probably earn themselves a workflow certification and likely earn themselves a nested workflow certification because they'll be, part of a team of teams working on some bigger solution.
oh, cool. So they can apply. Um, and then is it a rolling application? Like they can apply at any time, or is it just in the summer?
We
Or
we have no, it's we open the door for students every other month to
oh,
come
so
in.
it's quite often.
It's quite often. We're working towards every month, but we're scaling slowly. We started quarterly, so.
I think I definitely have some students that would be interested. Our age is a little bit older. We tend to have folks that are 30 is our average age.
We have
Cool.
students in the lab from high school to they're seeking their PhD. So it's
Right. There's
you
space
have
for
to be a
everyone who,
student.
yeah. If you have the mindset, you're welcome. If you don't have the mindset, you're also welcome, but you're just going to like it less.
Uh, yeah, I tend to have a lot of students that are older, that are a career changer, or they are returning to school. We
Mhm.
actually have probably 20% of our students already have a college degree,
Hmm.
and they've decided to change careers. Like I have a student tutor right now, and he's a police officer, and he's working on a computer forensics degree
Hmm.
Mhm.
because he wanted to make a career change. Um, so
Does,
I think
does,
this would be a good fit for them because they tend to be very motivated.
Sure.
yeah, exactly. And that self-selection feature is really important because those kids who are just like showing up to check the box, those aren't the kids who move in the lab because there's no carrot or stick.
Right.
And
There's
so
We
no
they're
don't
like,
have
carrot, there's
very
no
many of
stick, there's
those.
no one telling you what to do next. It's you
right,
and your team figuring it out.
right.
Mhm.
And so it's this funny sort of relearning hurdle that we all have to fall over. I've never met anyone who didn't actually fall over it at some point because your head knows one thing, but if you're more than 15 years old, you've been trained in some other way.
Mhm.
And it's not for everyone yet. And we know that in industry, it is the initiative takers, it is the problem seekers who will be the ones who opportunities open in front of more often.
And it's almost like there's a bit of it's almost opposite, right? So what we're looking for, I was a software engineer for Oracle before I became an IT instructor. You're looking for people that are a self-starter, that are very
Mm-hmm.
creative and can solve problems creatively.
Yeah,
And then when they see something, they just go and
fix
do it,
it.
right?
Yeah,
They tackle
exactly.
it. You don't want someone that the project manager or the team lead has to keep instructing them, go do that,
Yeah,
And school is almost the opposite. Like students that are really rewarded in high school are those that are sitting quietly, just completing the work,
right,
very diligent,
right,
but they aren't getting up and looking to solve a problem
Right.
during
right,
the class.
right,
Hence the
That would maybe
question
even get them
mark,
in
right? It's like,
trouble.
right. And so it's making school a place not of a stuff being poured into your head and pushed in, but rather a place where your interest, who you are in your fullness, pulls to you the opportunity that the leadership brings to that environment and makes
Mhm.
visible. So it's a fundamentally different mechanism for producing curiosity and applied learning.
All right. Well, excellent. Any other questions, or are we good? Because I think we're just about getting
Yeah.
ready to hit our
Yeah.
time box. Next week, we're going to have some guests from the Solo Network. They are a partner of Leaf and the Leaf Lab. We use them to issue our digital certifications, and the lab uses them to provide its pre-verified employment records to students who complete their time in the lab. And we're going to be talking about, this skill growth movement in workforce development and all these things that are being talked about at various levels that are going to be intersecting with education, are currently intersecting with education. And we'll also have a demo of their latest product. And if you'd like to come and witness that, we would love to have anyone join us.
That sounds good. I'll try to make time. Fridays mornings are sometimes I have other meetings, but I think
Yeah.
next week will work. So
Well, and Mary, we have a couple of different communities of practice spread out throughout the week. So if you have colleagues who are like, "Ooh, I would take 10 minutes and spend 10 minutes in one of those meetings," we'd love to invite you and any of your colleagues who you think are like-minded, just to meet other people who are like-minded.
I'll check. We've got a department meeting coming up this week, so
Okay,
Okay.
I'll add it to
Excellent.
our agenda and see if people are interested.
cool.
Sure. Excellent. Well, it was a pleasure
Yeah.
having everyone today.
Yes.
And we look forward to seeing you next month, third Friday of every month at this time.
And we can also send you any recordings that you want, or do we have your email? If we have your email, we can send you links to our video content and stuff like
I'll put
that as well, if that would be helpful
put
to
my
you.
email
But
in
we're
the
not
chat here.
right, and we won't send it unless you send it, because you have plenty of shit already flowing your direction. So again, pull-based system. We're not going to send you anything without you being like, "Yep, that is okay to send."